No script. Okay, let's go. Here, this is our next episode. We're gonna talk about nofap or semen retention and how it ties into Taoism, because some Taoist practices uses the harnessing of Jing, which is according to Master Gu, is a Taoist monk, and Jin is the essence of man. Oh, oh, that's one of the interpretation. And we have a guest today, but he wishes to remain anonymous, so we'll call him Ken. And he has more experience on this than the both of us. So, anyways, do you want to share your experience and how did you get into it?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show, Tony. It's an honor to talk about this deeply spiritual and deeply personal journey and practice of mine. Where should I begin, honestly? I know a lot of guys will think of nofap and be like, oh, like I tried No Nut November or something, whatever social media trend that has been going on. And a lot of people might try that, as a little friendly competition between themselves or their peers and be like, how long can I go without jerking off or something like that, right? However delicate, or if you want to talk about in a more vulgar way, as a guy, as talking about from a male perspective, it's quite a common thing. You talk about with your boys all the time. There's no real shame in it, right? Yeah, and if we're gonna get right to the point, I think it's also important to distinguish what you were talking about. Like, are we talking about nofap in the sense of the cultural phenomenon that is nofap, or are we talking about the more spiritual practice known as semen retention?
Yeah, more spiritual, and how it, for many people, from anecdotal evidence, they claim that it improves confidence, lowers anxiety, more focus, more energy, and all that.
So based off what I have learned, I believe that the whole entire nofap movement, which is originally started as a meme for young men on that, self-improvement grind or whatever they choose to frame it as, came from theories of semen retention that could have all been influenced by many different cultural and spiritual practices around the world. We know that we've heard from the people who practice the nofap movement that they think that, if they reach a certain amount of days without releasing, that they experience certain physical and mental benefits, like higher cognitive function, better mood stability, better confidence, and things like that. And other people even experience better physical effects, like they seem to think that their performance in the gym has improved or their sexual performance with a partner has improved. But there's no empirical scientific way that this has been proven. There are very few studies on the benefits of nofap for semen retention, and largely remains a practice with evidence that is purely anecdotal at this stage. But I'm here to share my personal experiences with that. To clarify, I wasn't part of the nofap movement. I didn't join any memes or anything like that. I decided to go on what we would call semen retention, not even for the cultural benefits. I simply thought that I was on a personal improvement journey of mine. I was trying to turn my life around. I was trying to get in better shape, eat healthy, get a better state of mind, outline my goals for life, and define what makes me happy. And I realized that pornography and masturbation were hindering me from those. And I thought the best course of action would be to stop that, because as we all know, we young men, especially in the age of social media, have large issues with pornography, whether that be just scrolling the hub or even subscribing to things like OnlyFans. It is something that is detrimental to society and men's mental health in the long run. A lot of men use pornography as a crutch to substitute for the real thing, or as a source of dopamine to cope with other stresses in life. And when you do that, inevitably you end up, jerking off or masturbating, whatever you want to call it. There's no real science that says there's any harm in physical masturbation, but there are definitely psychological studies that indicate how pornography is harmful to mental health, and pornography addiction is a very real thing. In my case, I wouldn't say I've had an addiction to pornography, but that really would define also how you define addiction. I'd be able to go without it, but it definitely helps. And I can see why it gets easy to be hooked on, because it just, aside from the physical sensations, the pleasures of masturbating, pornography lights something up in your brain. Like when you're scrolling the hub, everyone's been there. You keep looking for that perfect video. That's your brain trying to get that next dopamine switch. And every time you watch some hot video, you want something bigger and better next time. Similar to how drugs and dependency might work.
Yeah, you build a tolerance.
Exactly. I did feel at some aspects that was coming to me, that I encountered little pangs of dependence here and there, or wanting bigger and better things, and I thought, this is not good. Like, this is a pathway to addiction at some point, and I did not want to do that. But just to tie into my original point about me starting what you would call semen retention and for a self-improvement journey, I did so because one, it's not something that I see in a future successful version of myself. I don't want to be that guy who jerks off to porn. While I think that's something I have to take out of my life if I want to be successful, or be a good or happy person. But that's just my subjective point of view. Another reason for that is just the shame associated with it. Like, we've all encountered what we call post-nut clarity, right? And I remember vividly going through the process once of going through a gooning session. So that's a Gen Z term for a long extended pornography binge and masturbation session. It is very unhealthy, I would say, physically and mentally, because you're spending over an hour hunched over your laptop or your phone, beaten off, trying to search for the next video and just edging yourself as long as you can, instead of just getting straight to the point. And that's literally almost exactly how you would see a drug addict, trying to extend his high. And when I did that, I noticed that how much time I was wasting in my life.
Oh, sorry guys. Hi, I'm doing a podcast right now. Can we talk tomorrow? Yeah, sure. 6:30 p.m. Okay, we can talk then. Yeah, just give me a call. Thanks, bye. So sorry for the interruption. Please go on.
Yeah, so the shame associated was one aspect. I thought that I looked at myself in the mirror once after I was cleaned up after my session. I was like, damn, is this who I am? This is really pathetic, I was sitting there, tissue in my hand, after I'd done the deed, just exited out of incognito mode. And I was just still looking at myself in the mirror, and I see this disgusting slob of a man with the look of dopamine overuse in his face. And I just thought, this is sad. I don't want to live like this anymore. And from then, I just got scared. This is also a combination of other factors in my life that I wasn't happy with, but I thought that was the catalyst. It was the breaking point for me. I wasn't happy with where I was in life, and just seeing this pathetic excuse of a man with his dick in his hand in the mirror just made me rethink life. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to be that guy. Even though I didn't really have a porn addiction or anything, or at least even when I talked to my peers, they said they would even go for longer. They watch even more extreme content, which I didn't have an issue with. But I still thought that I had a problem, and I did. I rightfully quit, and I'm glad I made the decision to do so. And that's how I began.
So what are you using to sort of fill in the spot? Because you no longer use porn.
That's an excellent question, Mr. Tony, and I'm happy to describe and happy to share my experiences substituting pornography and masturbation with something better. As men, we always will have sexual urges. It's natural, but I believe, and this is for me, just maybe I'm just talking out my ass, but I just believe that sexual energy as a man should be cherished and should be preserved. It should not be wasted for the sake of wasting it. Even though I'm not too familiar with the spiritual side of things, I felt personally that every time after I did a beat-off session, I felt drained. Not just the shame and the mental part, I just felt like I wasted time, nutrients, and my life spirit. Right? It just felt like that way to me. And I think that and based on my current experience of retaining it and just healing my dopamine receptors by abstaining from pornography as a whole, I feel much healthier. I feel like I have more energy physically. In a way, I also feel like my mental process is more clear now that I don't get urges to constantly watch pornography or other sexually suggestive content. And I also find myself just not letting libido control me. Because as men, even if we don't resort to pornography or masturbation, a lot of men will do things, just have this instinct that they need to do anything they can to get laid. And that would mean settling for, women that aren't meant for you, doing embarrassing things to get a woman's attention, all kinds of things, wasting money on things like OnlyFans, sex workers, whatever you want to call it. And it just destroys a man from the inside out, financially, spiritually, physically. And that's also something I had to consider I didn't want to be a part of. So what I did was I tried to look into more theories of how to transmutate this sexual energy or libido into something productive. So whenever I felt horny or if I wanted to, break my streak or whatever, because there are times when you wake up, you get the morning wood, or you had a long day and you just happen to, touch yourself down there for a bit, and suddenly you just have the urge to do it, right? You're sitting all comfy in your bed, you got the laptop, why not? But I always tell myself, I've made it this far. I've already done 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, whatever. Why should I break the streak now? That means I'm losing a personal battle against myself. I've let myself down. I've broken a promise to myself. And the whole point of this was to teach myself to self-discipline. So what I do to combat these urges is to make it productive. Every time I feel like I want to beat off, I just do 10 push-ups. And once you get kind of tired, your muscles start to hurt or whatever from doing exercise, you just don't want to do it anymore. Because now all the blood has gone to your arms or your legs or whatever, and it's not pooling in your genitalia, so to speak. Yeah. And and it's also important to just make this a lifestyle habit. Every time you feel like jerking off, remind yourself of why you're not going to do it. Remind yourself of how you feel if you relapse, and remind yourself of how this energy can be used for something productive instead. Like go for a walk, get some exercise, call a friend. There are so many different ways to process this energy in a healthy way, I think. And that is what I have been working on. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that answers the question. But with my experience, it feels like I need a reason to do not jerk off. Because I don't have a relationship. Honestly, I don't believe I'll ever get into a relationship anytime soon, as I've tried meeting people, I've tried dating apps, and nothing sort of happened. And I feel like, porn masturbation is like the only thing I deserve almost, which is sad. And that sort of keeps me in the cycle of it doesn't matter anyways. I won't get a good girlfriend anytime soon, so might as well just sort of go back to the old habits and I've been doing that for years, and I'm almost 30. I'm 27 now, but I'm basically almost 30, and I'm still trapped in that cycle.
I can actually relate to that quite well, because I actually believe in the same kind of outcome where I don't personally see myself being in any sort of romantic relationship anytime soon, at least in my current stage in life. I don't think I am a man that deserves a relationship at the moment, given my current qualities, and I don't believe that if I were to put in the effort, that the effort would be reciprocated from women.
So
and I had to come to terms. This is what I had to, similar to what you said, but I had to come to terms with this fact the hard way. I had to realize that, it's simply not going to happen like it does for some other guys. But at the same time, I'm not going to sacrifice my dignity about it. I'm not going to cry about it or go into incel or whatever kids go through nowadays to blame their failures on their romantic failures on the opposite sex. No, I don't think that's right. I think if you're in that situation where you are not getting those sexual needs met or romantic needs met, you just have to come to terms with it and accept it the hard way. You'd be like, that's just the way it is. However, I can still work on myself. I can still be a happy man. I can still be a good man, a successful man. That's not something that's required in my life. And I know it's easier said than done, but at a certain point you have to realize that what other choice do you have? If you know that the outcome is not going to change because there's nothing you can do about it, why resort to unhealthy copes like pornography and masturbation instead of using that energy to go to the gym instead or something? Make yourself more productive, make you work on yourself to potentially make yourself more attractive in the future, to potentially increase your chances of actually getting laid or whatever.
I guess over all these years, I kept making excuses. It's like, oh, it takes so long, and by the time I do it, I'll be 30 already. And yeah, it's all excuses. And I keep reminding myself, oh, it's too late, it's too late, it's already too late. I'm like, in the beginning, it was like, oh, I'm in my 20s, it's already too late. Now I'm in my mid 20s, it's too late. Now I'm almost 30, it's already too late. It's definitely too late. And that just keeps going. That belief, that self-fulfilling prophecy keeps going. And I just keep going back to the same habits over and over again, because I have tried all these years, different methods of trying to get into a relationship, but somewhere in the process, I end up just like sabotaging myself.
I understand that, but at the same time, this also has nothing to do with your individual efforts to find a sexual relationship, because at the end of the day, that's not up to you, right? What matters is how you, like anything in life, it's pornography and masturbation is a coping mechanism to deal with something, right? And in your case, it's to deal with the absence of the real thing. But if you come to terms with the fact that there's nothing that you can change about your current circumstances, now the only thing you can do is change your perception and your actions to that realization, if that makes any sense. So if you notice that, like, yeah, I've done everything I can, I'm not a guy that can just go on Tinder and get laid, I'm not a guy that can find a girl at a club or whatever, and it's not how it works for me, right? Then you have to just come to terms with that and be like, yep, and that's okay. Like, it might take a grieving process depending on who you are and how much that matters to you in life, but the first step is to accept it. And the second stage would be then to find a way to substitute that or reframe your life perspectives in a way where it doesn't matter. Like, if your ultimate goal is to be, whatever your goal is, let's say you see yourself, what do you see yourself in like 5 years, for example? Like in my case, I see myself someone, who has a successful career, who's self-actualized in terms of, I know who I am, I know what I identify as in terms of my personal identity. I have a good social circle. I have the skills, the physical, social, emotional skills to go through life better, and that's what I want to work on, and that's what I want to improve in by the time I'm a little older. And in order to do that, I have to get rid of a lot of vices, and I have to get a little baggage in my life, and a lot of those baggages would be doing a little self-therapy and realizing that, like, yeah, there are some things in life that I can achieve, and there's some things in life that I cannot control. And for the things in life that I cannot control, there's no point worrying about that. And there's no point in resorting to bad habits to compensate for that, in a way. So I know a lot of people who struggle with substance abuse, for example, whether it be drinking or drugs or whatever, even just nicotine, like smoking. And a lot of them do so because when I ask them, they do it because they want to feel something. They're missing something in life. Like, for example, a lot of people drink to escape. A lot of people do drugs to escape from something, or because they want to simulate a feeling that they can't experience normally. And the same could be said for sex and relationships. If you can't stimulate that feeling normally, you will resort to a substitute to cope for the lack of it, right? But at the end of the day, all these are unhealthy copes. You're destroying yourself from the inside out by consuming pornography and excessively masturbating, so to speak. Now, we all know that pornography is bad. But now, when you get to, like, let's say, theoretically, even though this isn't common, there's a guy who just uses his imagination. He doesn't use any porn at all. Not even magazines, nothing. He just goes full analog mode, stick shift.
Dude, he makes porn in his mind.
Sure, yeah. Is that healthier? Now, that's a question I would say it is healthier than definitely consuming pornography. But at the same time, it now brings the question of semen retention that we originally wanted to discuss. Is that still worth it? Because you're still physically completing the act, but are there any negative implications or repercussions to releasing semen as a man? What are your thoughts on this before I continue?
if like coming from the more spiritual perspective, or Taoism specifically, like semen or the Jin is like it's energy that you can harness, and if you want to go the full route, you can harness the energy and then transmute it and do something with it, and then eventually can turn you into an immortal being. That's the ultimate goal of Taoism. There's all these monks are practicing all these things to basically try to become immortal, and Jin or like semen retention is like a big part of it. So, I mean, if we just want to talk about, it's basically just seeing it as like an energy reserve, and not just wasting it every day, jerking off. Sure, I mean, I agree with like not doing it so fucking much and transmuting it into something more productive. So I'm with you on that. But I don't do it because I am using that as like a coping mechanism, as like an escape. How other people use drugs, alcohol, whatever. I use porn and food also to escape from my problems, which is like a mix of mental health. I have like chronic health issues, and then just I don't really see a future. Like you discussed seeing yourself as a like successful person in 5 years. I don't even see that far into the future. It's like I'm just trying to get by the week.
You know, just to kind of add on to what you said there, I can't say that I'm a perfectly motivated person either. There are times where I hit low points where like I don't know if my life goals are possible anymore. I hit rough spots, dark patches in my life where I want to give up, or I just want to hide from the world or just lose faith in myself, and I just want to live for the moment instead of living for the future. And I totally get that. But every time that I get that thought, I'm reminded, okay, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to reassess my goals and priorities. But it's not okay to relapse. It's not okay to fall back into my bad habits. Because I've been through low points in my life where I was literally the textbook definition of a loser. I was 20-something. I didn't have a job. I was just barely extending my university degree just to stay in school and keep my parents happy. I was just gaming till 4 a.m. every night on a weekday. And I would just, spend random time, jerking off every day. Every day I would just, open up porn and just, have a wank. And that was a routine for life instead of, being a productive member of society. And that was one of the lowest points in my life. And in terms of how I would deal with that though is nowadays I look back and I reminisce on that time and be like, hey, I don't want to ever go back to the lifestyle. No matter how low life gets, I do not want to ever go back to being that unhealthy version of myself. So no matter how low life gets, even though I want it, like let's say I just want to hide from the world, I want to give up, I'm not gonna go and do heroin or something, right? I'm not gonna go and commit crime for the sake of it, for the thrill of it. I'm not gonna do anything harmful to myself or society. Because if you're already at a low point, why dig yourself into a deeper hole, Now it's easy to say like, yeah, I'm a lost cause or whatever, but like, if you're a lost cause, then yeah, okay, you're a lost cause. And there's nothing that can be changed for your future. However, do you want to be known as just a loser? Or do you want to be known as the loser who has a gooning session every day? What's worse? If you're going to be a loser, you might as well just own up to it, right? And just be that bum. Or you could be the bum that has a porn addiction. You see what I mean? There's always a worse outcome to no matter how low you think you are in life.
Yeah. Fair enough, man. Sorry, I finally wanted to pitch in after it's been almost 25 minutes, for Christ's sake. Was it difficult for you to kind of what do we call it? Did you go cold turkey on that? Like just no masturbation at all?
I originally started. It took me like 2 or 3 tries at first because I did dabble in randomly just doing no fap every now and then. But the longest streak I ever had was back in 2020, and I managed to do 56 days.
Whoa.
Yeah. But I did cheat for some days because some days I would just watch porn but not touch my dick, if that makes any sense. Which is not good because you're still getting the dopamine hit but without the physical release. So I don't know if that would really
It's
count
half the
as 56 days,
dopamine.
yeah. I just didn't release for 56 days. That would be the right term.
Pretty good.
I didn't. The first time I actually tried this trick, I didn't notice any physical benefits other than that I was more frustrated and angry the first 2 weeks for some reason. I felt like my testosterone
It's
was
building up.
like I just went.
Can't
I
do
just
anything.
was just just lifting more weights in the gym because I was just mad. I don't know why. I don't even know why I was mad. To be honest, Can't
More
describe.
masculine.
Could have been
energy.
placebo. I have no idea.
Placebo.
Placebo effect.
Oh.
Yeah. And then sporadically I would try 2 weeks here and there, a week here and there, but then I'd be like, I just give up. I just be like, I don't see the point in continuing. And then it was only until recently, I have 160 days something. Let me just. I have an app that tracks. I'll just track my exact number.
You have a NoFap app?
No, it's just a habit tracker app. I'm on 134 days of not releasing.
Whoa.
Yeah, 134 straight days.
You're getting into that immortal state.
The thing is, though, if we're going to discuss benefits now, I haven't seen any notable benefits.
But in the beginning, you did feel something.
At the beginning, I would say I did feel bored because it's like a shock to your body. You'd be like, hey, your body's like, why are you not jerking me off? Why are you not letting me bust? And your body kind of internalizes that, instinctually internalizes some kind of frustration or anger. And I guess, some people even say your blood testosterone level goes up in the first 2 weeks if you don't do it.
That makes sense.
And I did feel something a bit, but it just tapers off after a while. And then a lot of people who know FAP say that's like a flatline period, where sometimes you even experience erectile dysfunction if you don't touch your dick for too long. It just stops working. But apparently that's also a sign that your brain is healing. It's because your body is so desensitized to watching porn. It wants to return to its normal state. So as a guy, we shouldn't be constantly bombarded with sexual references all the time, because that will desensitize us, right?
Yeah.
But if you go cold turkey or you stay away from that content, your body will slowly adjust to how our ancestors did back when we see an ankle and we get all riled up, That's the natural state of man, I think, to be attracted to the opposite sex in a more pure, natural form.
I've heard stories that guys doing this, they somehow become more confident with women, or they see women as an actual person instead of just something.
I've heard of that as well. I think there are caveats to this. I think you have to approach this from a more nuanced perspective. Being on NoFap does not automatically grant you superpowers. It does not make you suddenly, it does not give you aura. There's no glow that woman can sense from you. There's no pheromones or scent. That is all bullshit. That's all placebo effect. And the guys that say that, suddenly, girls start liking me more because I'm on NoFap, no, they cannot tell. It's more likely that pornography has a direct negative impact on a man's confidence, because if you're the guy who's always jerking off or whatever, maybe, it directly impacts your dopamine system. When your neurotransmitters are not working properly, that might show off in your outwards emotions to other people. You might just talk less. You might, stutter on some things. Your mind might blank or something. Or if you're, talking to a woman, you're so horned up, so busy imagining them naked and you fucking them that you fumble. You fumble the conversations because you're too busy sexualizing them internally. But when you abstain from pornography, you allow your brain time to heal. You suddenly become more in your natural state, where now all those implications of pornography are not clouding your brain. So now you can have a normal conversation with women. And if you're a guy who's just naturally good at talking to women, of course that you will have positive outcomes and receptions from the opposite sex. But then again, that's also dependent on the individual. If you're always kind of like a guy that was not good with girls, you don't have riz, so to speak, or you're just chopped or whatever, then nothing's gonna change, unfortunately. That's just the reality of it. It's all subjective and dependent on individual factors. Sorry. But in terms of, in my experience, I wouldn't say it made me more confident or anything. I would say it got rid of any negative effects it might have, so it wasn't clouding my brain anymore. But I'm not, a Casanova or nothing. Nothing I would say would impact the way women react to me anyways. I'm not a bad communicator. I'm not a Riz master either. I'm just, just neutral. I just, I'm capable of having normal conversations with anyone. But I would say that quitting pornography made my mind a little sharper, I think, because I'm no longer consumed by lust. So does that answer your question?
I guess then you also don't have the shame that comes after committing the act.
Yes, I remember, if you're going to talk about the effect of shame, I remember when I finished a gooning session, my friend called me to work on a business project together, and my mind was blanking because I just fried my dopamine receptors like 10 minutes ago, and I was just like, you have that period after you jerk off, you're just out of it, you're just tired or whatever, you're satiated or whatever the right word for it, and I'm like, I felt so bad because my brain wasn't up to speed. I didn't feel sharp when this is an important call. And I was like, yep, this is definitely bad for me. And that feeling of shame that is something I'm always scared of and I don't want to ever go back to. Yeah.
Okay, if I may, you said earlier that or at least what I got from what you were saying was that some people are naturally better at talking to women and having riz, and therefore they have a better outlook on being able to, get a girlfriend or whatever. But do you think that's fixed, or do you think men who aren't as good at talking to women can work on themselves in order to achieve that?
I think social skills, everyone can work on them to an extent. You cannot change your core personality, I believe. If you're always an introvert, then you're going to be an introvert. If you're an extrovert, you're most likely always going to be an extrovert.
Yeah.
Then it is a spectrum, though. It's not so black and white. You are on a spectrum. But in terms of if we're going to talk about the outcome, being able to get a girlfriend, being able to get a one-night stand or something, I think the hard truth about it is that it's mostly dependent on how you look. And nowadays, because most people meet through dating apps, that's all visual. And if you're going to go to the club and try to whisk girls up, you got to stand out. You just got to be the hot guy in the room. You know what I mean? Because unfortunately, looks matter as much as people like to deny it. And in terms of social skills, though, as long as you look you look decent enough physically for girl standards, and you're not, socially deficient, in the sense that you completely miss social cues, you can't even hold a conversation, almost borderline autism levels, social deficiency.
That is a spectrum as well, though.
Then there shouldn't be an issue, because let's say you get this hot dude, the guy they see in the movies, the main character.
Oh, yeah.
Every girl likes this guy. You don't have to be a Riz master. You don't have to be a Leo DiCaprio or whatever.
Girls will raise
they will
you
come
up.
to you. They will raise you up.
Yeah. Girls will
However,
raise you up.
if you're not physically gifted, but you're average and you still meet the cutoff to meet a girl's standards in terms of being their type, but you're a good conversationalist, you have humor or whatever, then yes, that bumps you up a few points on their level. And if you play the numbers game, eventually you might score something.
Going back to, I said I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to get into a relationship. What is the criteria then? What is your criteria? When do you feel like you're ready? You have to make a certain amount of money. You have to be some certain stage in your career or something.
I personally believe so. There are many aspects of my life that I have to fix in order to be considered market ready. Because like it or not, relationships and dating for Gen Z is a market. All the girls you like, they probably all have friends that drag them to clubs and bars, hook them up with hot guys, or if they're bored, they can just swipe on next Chad, whoever the 6 foot tall, handsome dudes, just instantly on an app. And they have so many options too, considering how women can be picky and men are usually desperate on things like dating apps. So it's all completely imbalanced. It's they all go. It's 80% of there are little studies to back this up. 80% of women on dating apps only swipe right on the top 20% of men, but pretty much all men swipe on almost all women, because men have much lower standards and they're just trying to. It's casting a wide net and just seeing what bites, so to speak. So the odds are against you, especially if you're not that guy, so to speak. And there's no point in forcing it. At a certain age, I'm sure you could speak from experience from this as well as I am. But you just know. At a certain point, you just know that you're not a ladies' man. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, okay, let me correct that. there is always something you can do about it. You can always look smacks, which I think is the number one thing every guy should do before.
Mewing?
No, let's not get not the memes, but just proven things to make yourself look better. Like if you're out of
Gym.
shape, then go to the gym, eat healthy, work on your skincare, get a new hairstyle. There are many things you can do. Like I'm not gonna be a virtue signaler. I'm not gonna be like, oh, there's somebody for everybody. There's always a girl that's into a guy like you. Bullshit. That's what the movies like to say. No, like it or not, that's not how life works. Life is a competition. And especially if you're a guy living in a big city like this, where women have options, you have to be that guy who gets picked, and you have to be competitive, so to speak, in the market. It's like capitalism. If you're a product and you're putting yourself out there, you're advertising yourself as a product. Why should the consumer, which is a woman, pay good money for an inferior product when there are so many more products literally at the next aisle at the grocery store? You gotta think about that. Like, how can I market myself as a valuable niche product that stands out in the market?
Gotta go at it from a business.
Exactly. Everything is like unfortunately that's just the way it is. And like in my case, I have to fix the way I look. I need to get in better shape. I need to gain like 20 kilograms of muscle, even though I'm continuously going to the gym, working on my health. It's not good enough. It's just simply not good enough. And I'm talking about myself at least. The second thing is just overall, I need to fix my looks more. I need to continue working on my style and my fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I need to start, taking more care of like simple things. I know men like to think skincare or self-care is gay. No, I think you should do that. I think every guy should make sure that they look pristine. If you have facial hair, make sure it's cleaned up, make sure it's groomed. If you have acne or whatever, start working on that. Get some treatment for it. Hair stuff, like if you figure out your hairstyle or whatever. There are many, and overall, just find a good look that suits you. And if we're gonna be superficial and talk about numbers here, guys who are born 7 or 8, if they do these things, they'll be the alpha male, bro. If a guy who's just naturally good looking without trying goes to the gym for a couple years, gets a cool haircut, gets a good sense of fashion, he's almost a 9 or a 10 now. He's gonna start slaying on the apps and in the club, bro, as long as he has some decent social skills. However, if you're like a 3 out of 10, like you're like 5'5", you're like fat, I don't know, whatever, I don't know, something's going on, you just don't look good, or you're too scrawny or whatever, you're just objectively unappealing to the opposite sex, then you need to work on that. But at the same time though, it's important to be realistic about these goals, because if you're born like a 3 out of 10, the most you can get is probably a 6 out of 10 if you spend years, sculpting your body in the gym, getting toned up, getting ripped, working on your skin or whatever. The most you could probably get is a 6. Not good, like depending on the person's face or whatever, or their body composition. But that doesn't mean you should give up though. You only got one life. Why stay as a 3 out of 10? Try to be that 6 out of 10, Maybe one day you could be a 5 out of 10 girl that's on the same level as you. Nothing's impossible, right? But if you're like a 3 out of 10 guy who's always going for 7, 8 out of 10 girls, you gotta forget about that. Like ASAP, that's never gonna happen, right? You're only gonna be miserable chasing that outcome. You have to work on yourself, but also be realistic about your goals. Because if you're not realistic about your goals, first of all, you won't reach them, because the goalposts will always continue to be higher than what you're capable of scoring, and you'll never be happy, and eventually you'll give up, and that's detrimental to your self-growth, I think. Sorry, did you have another question? Like I don't know if I answered your question properly.
No, that's great. I'm just thinking.
What was your original question? I think your original question was like, is there like a limit on like how much a guy can improve, right?
Well, I was wondering if you can improve at all, and you said, of course, you can.
To an extent.
To an extent.
A realistic extent, yeah.
Okay. And where do you see yourself in all those categories that you've listed, and where do you want to be in that category?
I believe in order to make myself a more, someone more attractive to women, if we're going to talk specifically about that, I need to get in shape, like I said before. I need to be financially independent. Like, I'm not saying you gotta be a millionaire or anything, but like you gotta be like a guy who has a good job,
like I
pays
still
for
live with my
himself,
parents.
has his own place. That's like a bare minimum, I think.
You gotta have your own place.
Yeah.
Especially.
But that's just the bare minimum too. I don't want to settle for minimum. I want to thrive. And I'm not saying be like an Andrew Tate millionaire, but like I want to be that guy who has all his basic needs like food, shelter figured out, but also I have leftover money to do fun things in life, to show the world that I'm a fun, exciting, adventurous person. I want enough money to travel the world, gain life experiences. I want enough money to just, if my friends invite me on a night out, I don't want to have to worry about, splitting the bill, getting only like the cheap options at a restaurant. I just want to be able to indulge and experience life for what it is. Because when you're living in that flow state where like you're not worried about money, you're not worried about bills or whatever, you just naturally become more confident. You just look happier, and people, I guess, are gravitated towards that energy, right? People can sense if you're struggling in life, and no one likes people that struggle, like it or not, even if they are themselves. And in my case, looks max. I need to get in better shape, just look better. Second, just get my money up, career max, whatever you kids call it nowadays. And thirdly, I guess this would kind of, in terms of social skill improvement, that would just kind of happen naturally, I think. Like as I go through life, as I grow up as a person, as I experience new things and, talk to new people and develop new perspectives, social skills will just improve, right? I wouldn't say I have poor social skills, but I wouldn't say like I'm like someone who has charisma or anything. I don't light up the room when I talk. I can't get like, I wouldn't say I'm a born leader or anything. I don't think I'm qualified to say whether anyone can, work towards to being that charismatic leader or whatever, being a Riz master, whatever. I personally think there's a limit to your personality as well, just as there is to your body. But yeah, if there's something you could do about it, like if let's say you want to be a better public speaker, then yeah, you could definitely practice, getting a job like sales, for example, or doing like, Toastmasters, some kind of, find a debate or a hobby group. You could definitely improve public speaking. But in terms of, I don't know, if you're to answer your original question, is it going to get me laid? I can't say that it probably will, because I don't think anything you say has anything to do with how likely you are to get in a woman's pants. I think it's mostly really dependent on your overall aura, which is how you look and how you are perceived by others. Because often, when you see like, guys that aren't like 6 foot tall or you have tons of money or jacked whatever with, attractive women, you wonder, how did that happen? It's definitely, a lot of people will immediately say personality, right? But how would they even define personality? Like, like we don't often like know exactly what constitutes an attractive personality, other than, maybe leadership, humor, whatever. I think a lot of that comes with that personality is also defined by that person's kind of status in a social group. Because you don't have to be the best looking guy, you don't have to be the richest guy in the room, but if you have a social circle and you're respected in that social circle, people naturally gravitate towards the people that they see on top of the social hierarchy. So literally, this is a good example I can think of. Let's say you grew up in rural Alabama. All your friends are rednecks with missing teeth, meth heads and whatever. Even in that redneck circle, there is that one redneck dude with 3 missing teeth, chewing dip all the time that all the redneck country girls love. Even though he's not an objectively attractive guy, he's on meth, he's living off benefits, he's a bum. He's not someone you would consider any woman to be attracted to. But in his situation, he's the funniest, or he's like the cool guy of his redneck friend circle. So whenever he goes down to the local bar and he's with this group of friends, hyping him up, women see that energy. They see that, he's part of a social group, so he's not some loner or bum. He has friends, he's respected by his peers, and he might have his own unique personality quirks that make him attractive to those women in his league, right? So your environmental context is very important as well.
Yeah, that's some great input. How important do you think getting laid is to your overall life objectives? And do you really think that everyone should strive to get laid, or do you think that people should be more subjective and be like, maybe I don't need this as much, but I need this as much? Like, let's say in your case, how important would that be?
I lean heavily towards the latter. Sex is not something, I don't think it's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, honestly. I don't think you need that to survive, literally. And it should be considered like, your own relationship with your sexuality should be defined by yourself, like you said.
Mhm.
It's up to the individual. But if we're talking about my opinion, I personally don't need it to survive. I could go for a lifetime without it. Because and the whole point of doing the semen retention nofap is to prove to myself that I can overcome biological urges to become a better man.
Mm.
I can transmutate this energy and horniness or whatever, or the libido, and make it into productive energy instead. Because it's not like I can do anything with it, right? I would rather use this energy to be productive in life. Try to use it for other purposes to improve my life rather than just wasting it jerking off.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, should every guy strive to get laid? Only if that's what you want to. But at the same time, if that's what you want to, you have to be real honest with yourself. You'd be like, why? You have to ask yourself why. Like if you're a virgin, you gotta ask yourself, do I just want it to get that label off myself? Is it because I seek social validation from others, just to be, get my boys to pat me on the back and treat me like a man or something? I don't know. It really depends. Or if you just naturally like sex, like let's say you just always, had, no problems getting laid before, and you just like having sex. That's great too. And that's completely okay to have a goal. But at the same time, you gotta be realistic. If you're only smashing fat chicks, then don't expect you're gonna get some model anytime soon. Be happy smashing the tortas,
That's true, man.
And to continue expanding on that, I don't think guys should really put too much emphasis on trying to get laid. Like, it'll just ruin you from the inside out. Because like I was saying to Tony, if you're not the guy where it happens to you naturally in life, and if you're trying to force it, you will be sorely disappointed. And you will go down a dark path. Like, you could either go down to hating yourself, or you could lash out against women in society and become an incel. You'll start, looking at far-right views about, how women are, how women should be. And if you go down that path, there's really no turning back. Because at that point, if people those views are considered fringe and unacceptable, even though, some of them might be true in some ways, like the black pill, whatever you want to call it. It's just not something you want to share with other people. Because first of all, no one's going to agree with you on that. And women will really hate that because it's considered misogynistic. So don't ever go down that path of blaming the opposite sex for your problems. That's never the right thing to do. If you want to blame something, you can blame yourself and try to make yourself better. Like if you're fat or whatever, then be like, yeah, I'm fat. No, I'm gonna get laid being fat, so I might as well, go to the gym, lose weight, right? You could think of it, you could frame it that way, and you could, use that as positive motivation. But the worst thing you can do is be a simp. Let's say you're an average dude. You're not, you're neither here or there. You're just an average dude. You don't need to fix any deficiencies with your looks or your personality. And you just go out, you go to the bar or club, you try dating app, whatever. But you start seeing yourself becoming increasingly more desperate. You start, looking at pickup artists on YouTube, thinking that would work for you. You start, buying girls' club at the club shots. They're just laughing at you behind your back and just using you for free money. Or you're swiping on everything on dating apps and humiliating yourself, getting ghosted by everyone the very few matches you even get matched with. What that will really bring down a man's self-esteem at some point. The man's got to realize enough is enough. This is not, the definition of trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insanity. Don't be insane, You don't want to ruin your mental health chasing pussy. Empires have fallen because of pussy, because of great men who decide to be weak, Don't do that.
Of course, yeah, that's good advice, man. Yeah, for sure. There's definitely more important things. I find, especially just having a more family focus and being more, helping out, your friends, your family, being a socially, decent human being, and focusing on career stuff or physical health. Well, those aren't mutually exclusive. You can do all of those things, but yeah, that's definitely a great way to spend your time, and I suppose we could all be doing that more.
I recommend it to any guy out there, especially to younger guys. Stop chasing pussy. Like, I'm gonna be as blunt as I can. Not gonna use any fancy terminology anymore. If you chase, here's a good metaphor. I'm sure many of you have heard. If you chase butterflies, they will always run away from you. It's better to build a garden that the butterflies will come to. Right?
Yeah.
Never chase, only attract. Now that sounds really anti-Tate-ish, but it's true. Because you can't force things that aren't meant to be. However, if you work on yourself and follow some general truths about making yourself more desirable as a man, then your chances improve. Even you could be completely chopped, you could be autistic, whatever, a complete negative 2 out of 10. However, if you work on yourself for a few years, maybe you could be a 3 out of 10. And if you're a 3 out of 10, who knows? Maybe you could find another 3 out of 10 girl. I don't know if that's what you want, or you could just be happy, just being single and just living life, right? Because at the end of the day, you worked on yourself and you got yourself 5 points up the scale for yourself. Right? That should be something that guy should be, that guy should be proud of.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It seems definitely like a more modern point of view, because I feel like back in the day, a lot of different media sources and just the general culture was that, like most men should, build a family, and they should, have a wife and children, and, the wife should, take care of the kids, the guy should be the breadwinner and everything. But, things have changed so much over the past several decades that expecting everyone to do that seems a little bit unreasonable. So this definitely seems like a refreshing, kind of more self-deterministic, but also more realistic outlook on how men should lead their lives. So, yeah.
Like, I guess I know there are a lot of societal pressures on men, especially if you have a group of guys always trying to get you laid out, bragging about their own sexual exploits. And I know that's hard, but like, as a guy, you just really have to. You cannot chase social validation. You can't let other people decide what's right for you and how to feel about yourself, I think.
Something smells burnt.
Well, I didn't leave the oven on, so I don't know what.
That's the negative energy burning in this room from 3 gentlemen having an informed education discussion.
Indeed.
That's what you're smelling.
Are you sure someone didn't just rip gas?
No, it's like burned.
No? That's weird, huh? Might be another wildfire. Okay. Sorry, please go on.
Yeah, it's never good to chase social validation, especially as a man. A lot of women have troubles, dealing with social validation. That's why you see so much things like body dysmorphia, so many, women chasing influencers in reality shows and just, consuming brain raw all the time because they're so concerned with how their peers think of them, how society might think of them for not following social norms. And and guys do that too. We're not immune to that. We fall.
So what's the norm for guys?
I think, and this is my personal opinion, as a man, you gotta carve your own path for yourself. You can't rely on other people's validation. Obviously, doesn't mean take it to an extreme and be like some weird hermit that believes in conspiracy theories and expects everyone else to follow along because he's not a sheep. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, if people are like, oh, this is how you should live your life, or like, you're not a real man if you do this or if you don't do that. No, I don't think you should subscribe to other people's ideals of how you should live your life. As long as you're not hurting yourself or other people and you're happy with what you're doing, that should be what's right for you. Not what other people say is right or what your society tells you should be right, Because sometimes, society's visions are not congruent with yours, or sometimes they're just simply not compatible or not possible for some guys. Like he was saying, society, especially depending on your culture, expects, men to, conquer women. You got to get laid. You got to, have a bunch of kids. You got to be fruitful or fertile as a man or whatever. But if you're a guy that can't do that, then that's just not part of your life, and it shouldn't be. And if you're that kind of guy, you should reassess your life priorities and be like, yeah, you know what? I ain't gonna be that chap. I ain't gonna get laid anytime soon. I'm definitely not getting married anytime soon. I'm definitely not passing these inferior genes on to potential offspring. So you just got to be like, you know what? Maybe that's not it. Maybe that's just not. I'm just not cut out for that. However, that doesn't mean I can't be a fucking engineer or a scientist or a lawyer, whatever you want to be. You can still work towards being a good version of yourself.
Right? The iron lung guy.
Yeah.
All right. You know the iron lung guy?
No.
Tony has quite a tale for you.
Paul Alexander.
Yep.
The guy who lived his entire life in the iron lung.
Oh, I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
And became a lawyer.
Yeah, he wrote. Cool. He had a pen in his mouth, and he wrote legal contracts just with that pen, like that.
See, that's very admirable. And even in a condition like that, he wanted it. He saw a goal and he went for it. You know. And people might have told him it's not worth it, whatever. And maybe it's true. Maybe it was not worth it because it's not like he can get up on his own and walk around, right? But
it was worth it. Man.
But to him, it was worth it.
The fact we're discussing him today,
he could sit in a wheelchair outside our lung for like an hour at a time.
And here's what I want to tie in. Let's say you're just a 20-year-old virgin or whatever. You just, society might consider you a loser or a failed man. But it's just people are going to judge no matter what. People are going to be shitty. They're going to call you names no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Why let their opinions affect you, right? Right? And that goes back into my original point of, if you're already at a low point, why kick yourself even lower? If you can be a loser virgin, or you can be a loser virgin that wanks off and subscribes to OnlyFans. Which one would you rather be, right? Or you could be just a virgin, but a successful software engineer, or a guy who hiked Mount Everest. At that point you're not a loser anymore. You're just a virgin. Now, if people still think you're a loser, even though you might be a tech billionaire for being a virgin, that's on them. They're probably just projecting their own insecurities onto you at that point.
That does happen a lot of the time. Yeah.
Or you should just find better company. Maybe you should stop hanging around with toxic people that judge you for being less of a man. When that's objectively not true.
Let's not name drop anyone.
I don't name drop anyone.
Yeah. No, I do agree. Yeah, it's important to have good company, which is why I'm here with you guys today. So, yeah.
Oh, it's almost an hour. It's a lot. Let's wrap this up.
Any other questions?
No,
thank you for being here. Thank you for coming, joining this episode.
I know we didn't get to talk on the spiritual side of things, but maybe that could be discussed in the future episode. Maybe with some additional inspiration for creativity. In the form of.
We'll leave that anonymous. So thanks for tuning in, and y'all have a great day or night. Hopefully you learned something. Because Ken here is very experienced and he dropped a lot of wisdom today. So, have a good one.
All right.